So anyway, back on the tracks here. Chapter 22. Like I said, I've been excited, anticipating getting to chapter 22 because I've been rough and critical of Abraham's faith in the chapters past. But I think in chapter 22, he earns his title of the father of faith in chapter 22, I believe. So in 21, we saw God's promise fulfilled. Everybody remember chapter 21? What happened in 21? Anybody? Isaac was born. All right, who wants to start reading in 22? So verses 1 through 14, maybe a little bit further, that's kind of the meat and potatoes of this chapter as far as what I'm going to kind of focus on today. But in this chapter, we see Abraham's faith mature. We've seen it falter and waver in the past, but in chapter 22, I think we see it mature. I think we see it become what he would be remembered for and what would be counted to him as righteousness. Why do y'all think that is? Why do we see Abraham's faith mature in 22? But what caused him to get to that place? Because it ain't been that long ago he split and went to Egypt when things got shaky. He's done all these things when God's told him, go here, I promise you this, this, and this. And he's questioned that and moved. Why didn't he do that here? Promise. The promise in chapter 21, he finally got to see it. That's my take. I could be wrong as wrong can be, but that's my take on why his faith was so much stronger in 22 is because the promise that he was like scratching his head about all the way up to 21, like, okay, God, you said all this was going to happen. It ain't happening. It finally happened in 21. And I think, maybe when you have to wait a little bit longer for a promise, it's bigger to you when it happens. It's. That's my take on it. So verse 1 and 2, we'll read again. After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham, here I am, he answered. Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about. Why did God refer to Isaac as Abraham's only son? What about Ishmael? That was the promised son. That was the promised seeds. That's in my mind. That's why he referred to him as his only son. It's because God wanted to emphasize his promise and the fulfillment of that promise. Isaac was the promised son, the one God promised from the start. So carrying on in verse 3, it says, so Abraham got up early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took with him 2 of his young men and his son Isaac. He split wood for a burnt offering and set out to go to the place God had told him about. On the third day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. Now, Abraham split out and gone to Egypt twice and come back more wealthy than he went there with, both times. So he is a very wealthy man. He had servants that could do the work that he did in verses 3 and 4. He saddled his donkey. He split the wood. Why didn't he have his servants do that? Put ourselves in his shoes for a minute. You finally got this promised son, and God says, go take him to this mountain. I'll show you what mountain, and sacrifice him to me. And I'm like nervous. I'm freaking out at this point. You promised this to me, and now you want me to give it back to you. Like, that was kind of a cool thing. Was he afraid that he would let his faith waver if he sat still and let somebody else do the work? Like he's just hanging out in the tent. Somebody else is getting, like, is he worried his mind's going to start to wander and compromise his faith in this moment? Yeah, yeah, maybe so. Maybe he's like, I'm this serious about doing what you asked me to do. That may be it. And something that I never really, or at least not paid that much attention to, this was a 3-day journey as well, from the time they saddled up and got on their donkeys to the time they got to the mountain. This was a 3-day ride. That's a lot of time to sit and question what God said to him. Yeah, lots and lots of time. Verse 5 is like the neon sign verse for me in this chapter. It says, then Abraham said to his young men, stay here with the donkey, the boy, and I, then we will come back to you. What's that make How y'all feel about that? What y'all think about that? Commentary kind of unpacks it a little bit, kind of goes deeper into what that faith looked like inside of Abraham's mind. I believe that Abraham trusted God in this moment by him saying, we're going to go worship and we're coming back. I believe that was faith. I believe that was God. He trusted God. I believe Abraham believed that Isaac was a promised seed. And without Isaac, none of God's promise could come to pass. What has God told Abraham in the past that his offspring would be? As many as the sands of the sea and stars in the sky, like he's made giant promises based on just Isaac. So I believe in this moment that Abraham is very rooted in faith that this is going to come true. He just gave me this son. This is going to happen. We're coming back. Abraham, this is big too. So Abraham knew, but he did it anyway. He could have easily compromised and not followed through with the actions of what God told him to do. If he knew at the bottom of the mountain, Isaac's coming back down this mountain with him, why go ahead with all of the actual actions? You see how easy it would be to say, well, God's going to send him back anyway. We don't need to go. I don't need to actually do this. This is a hard thing. There would have been a plethora of ways to avoid doing what God told him to do because he knew the outcome anyway. Does that make sense? Am I making any sense of that? I don't know. It's impressive to me.
Because he had to show to send this, I know it's going to be different than we think. He's coming back with me, but God said, do this. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
But he's also leaves obedience.
That's what I was fixing to say. It's like extreme obedience in that moment because you know that Isaac is going up the mountain and Isaac is coming back down the mountain. So the actions that need to take place on top of that mountain don't have to take place there. Right? It would be very easy to just say,
it shows us showing it.
Tell him.
Yeah, I mean, chapter 22 is a record of his faith maturing. Sure he was. The commentary notes in mine say that the writer of this is Hebrews 11:19. It says the writer of Hebrews notes that Abraham considered God to be able even to raise someone from the dead. So that may shed a little bit of light on why he felt the need to go ahead and follow through with the physical actions of what God told him to do, because even if he went to the top of this mountain and sacrificed Isaac, in his mind, God can raise him from the dead. I have to do what he told me to do. Yes, God's promise is going to take place, and even though what we're doing right now makes zero sense in a human, from a human standpoint, this makes no sense. He's promised me all of this, but the one person on the planet that can make that happen, I'm fixing to go sacrifice on top of the mountain. So that faith is evident there, that even if I do have to follow through with these actions and Isaac dies on this mountain, he can be raised from the dead and come back down with me. That's huge. Like, that is so huge to me in comparison to his faith in chapters past. All right, in verse 6, it says, Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and laid it on his son Isaac. In his hand he took the fire and the knife, and the two of them walked together. Then Isaac spoke to his father, Abraham, and said, my father. Let's read 6 and 7 again. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering. In his hand he took the fire and the knife, and the two of them walked together. And Isaac spoke to his father. Think about that from Abraham's perspective for a second. How easy would it be to just say, the heck with this? We're not doing this. This is crazy.
All of us would do that.
Every one of us in here would be like, no, this is insane. There's no way God would tell me to do this. This is crazy. Think about it from Isaac's perspective. Like, I ain't toting this wood, man.
You can't think it.
All the times in the last weeks that I have made fun of Abraham, this is a moment where it all comes back to you, slaps you in the face. You got your like I said, we don't know exactly how old he was, but I just picture somebody Caden's age, Mason's age, and he's looking at you like, "Hey, Pop, we're missing something."
Yeah.
How easy would it say? You know what? You're right. Let's get back on the donkeys and go home. Yeah, I don't. I'm sorry about that. I was smoking weed. You know, how easy would it be to just say heck with it right there? Abraham answered, "God Himself will provide. He will provide the lamb for the burnt offering." Then the two of them walked on together. When they arrived at the place that God had told him about, Abraham built the altar there and arranged the wood. He bound his son Isaac and placed him on the altar. Abraham reached out and took the knife to slaughter his son. It's go time. You imagine tying his hands up. He just carried the wood up here for him. Can you imagine? My heart would be beating through my throat.
We wouldn't be there.
We probably never would have made it. We probably never would have got on the donkey in the first place, much less got to where he's at now.
Y'all still be down in your camp. What about so-and-so over there?
I could see me just pacing around camp, like, is this really what you want? Wait, I'm not hearing you. You know, and be like, I gotta go milk the goats. I'll be back. You know, we're talking. We never would have made it to this point. That's a very valid argument. All right, then, you know, verse 11 says, "But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, 'Abraham, Abraham.' And he replied, 'Here I am.'" How do you think picture that scene in your mind? He's got the knife drawn back. He has prepared himself mentally, emotionally to sacrifice his son. Like you said, Isaac had to have some sort of obedience in this as well. And then right at go time, "Abraham, Abraham." And he replies, "Here am I." I can imagine he would have yelled that at the top of his lungs as he's trying to catch his breath. "Hey, I'm right here." You know what I'm saying? Like, think about that. You're standing over your son, knife drawn back, and you hear your name called. Can you imagine the emotion that would have poured out of him in that moment? And maybe he didn't. Maybe it was.
So, I mean, he was fixing to go. The angel was like,
I'm really surprised that there's not like 15 exclamation marks after here. That is verse 11.
So let me.
I don't feel like that's the way it went. I feel like in that moment, he probably would have had a hard time staying on his feet.
Yeah.
The amount of relief that would have flooded his body in that moment, he would have had a hard time standing on his feet.
So much trauma has happened in this moment.
Think about how many times you would have questioned, and probably Abraham did too, am I hearing God? Or is this something demonic? Or is this something I've made up in my head? Like what? Yeah. How long would we have reasoned with these commands and flipped and flopped back and forth with, you know, I'm going to go check here and make sure, you know, how long would we have toyed with what God told us to do when it's something like this, when it's something this big that you have to give up? We get asked to give up some of the smallest, stupidest stuff. That's real hard. It's real hard.
Kept all this to himself, doing that, and he's keeping it from.
Probably to protect her from the heartbreak that would be unnecessary, because he knows they're coming back.
Saying he's held it.
Verse 13. Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught in the thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it as a burnt offering in place of his son. Think about the relief. Like I can almost feel my body start to sweat just thinking about that emotional roller coaster from right here where we were at 2 seconds ago to, okay, there's a ram that God just provided here. I don't know what all the chemicals are in your brain, but I imagine they was like, you know. But what is verse 13 a picture of? What is verse 13 really about? Because it's much, much deeper than just a lamb provided. It is a very emotional, at least to me, picture of Jesus. when everything seems hopeless, everything seems doomed, nothing's making sense, the Lamb provided himself a sacrifice for us. Some form of it's going to be okay. I know this is what God said to do, and it doesn't make sense to me, but it's going to be okay. Elsewise, there's no, like I said, there's a million reasons to not go through with this. There's, you can question, like you said, God's never asked for a child sacrifice before, so this is surely not God on the hearing.
Yeah.
This faith, this situation in Abraham's faith is almost incomprehensible for me. To not question that command into oblivion and just not do it.
It's the kind of faith we're all supposed to have.
No one else has the same amount of faith, greater faith than Abraham.
Why do we think this entire situation happened? Why did God tell him to do this? Why does chapter 22 exist? And I don't have an answer for that. I'm trying to start the conversation on this to kind of better understand. What was you finna say, Chester?
I think it's to test his faith.
We do. I mean, people say God, and if he's going to test us with something so great, then he's going to test you with your greatest thing.
What's the scripture? If you're faithful with little, you'll be trusted with much. Or what it's New Testament scripture, but
it's a big promise.
Yeah, which I think that almost makes it more difficult to be obedient in this moment. If you know that God said he's the promised seed for great nations to come, why would he say go sacrifice him? It makes no sense. Nothing makes sense. That would make it really easy for me to question and dismiss that command. That would be super easy for me to dismiss it because God said I'm going to be the father of many nations through Isaac. Going and sacrificing him doesn't work there. It's those moments where you have to be in the Word and in prayer and surrounded by, you have to be pursuing Christ in every aspect of your life to be able to defeat the thought of, is this from God? Because how many things have we reasoned in our human mind and dismissed that might have been from God that just didn't make sense to us because we're looking at everything from a human perspective. We're looking like this doesn't reason out these. And do you fear him enough to do your absolute best to be as close to him as possible, to be sure that you're hearing him?
No, we're not doing our best. You got to do our time for him.
How many things have we missed? A lot. Abraham named that place the Lord will provide. So today it is said, it will be provided on the Lord. The angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time from heaven and said, by myself I have sworn. This is the Lord's declaration. Because you have done this thing and have not withheld your only son, I will indeed bless the stars of the sky and the sand on the seashore. He's repeating himself again out there. He said that 3-4 times in the letters. Your offspring will possess the city gates of their enemies. I think it's also important to remember that faith is a growth Christian and have the faith of Abraham. But it's not okay to sit there either. Relentless pursuit, staying in the Word, staying in prayer, keeping yourself surrounded with people that are doing the same is going to be your best bet to be in the position that Abraham was in chapter 22 with faith that solid.
And that's where you want.
It's going to be easy after that. Truth, it's going to be difficult.
So that's where it's at. And a lot of people are experiencing this chaos up and down.
It goes back to that 25%. And when Paul made the comment, they rock it down, it shot up, everything was wonderful, and then the first time it got hard, very specific person in my mind right now that was that comfort. Anybody that's training, anybody that's like, my legs are sore today from yesterday. But if you're gonna grow, if you're going to have that faith that Abraham had, God's gonna stretch you. He's gonna twist you. He's gonna work you out. It's not gonna be easy. And we don't want to, if your life is easy, My chances are you're not in his will if everything is just cake and ice cream.